been a little over 3 weeks since the Switch 2's launch, and I just wanted to give my opinions on the console and the games I've played on it so far. I think it makes the most sense to start with Mario Kart World because that is the big launch title. It's arguably the reason to buy a Switch 2 right now for many people, and it is good. It is very good. I've really been enjoying the multiplayer. This is the first Mario Kart game that I've really played a decent amount online, and I'm happy to see that that seems to work very well. I haven't really had to deal with much in the way of communication errors or anything like that, at least that disrupt the flow of gameplay when I'm playing with friends. The multiplayer modes themselves are really great. Of course, the Grand Prix sticks around from previous games, but it's really the new Knockout Tour mode that steals the show. This is the new mode where you go through basically one massive unbroken course, and as you hit the laps, players get knocked out if they aren't at a certain rank. It does a great job of conveying just the massive scale of this world, which they really needed to do, I think, to justify taking Mario Kart Open World in the first place. But with that being said, the basic course design is also really good. The battle maps are good this time. I thought they were really weak. I mean, it's kind of been weak since Double Dash in my opinion, but I've had a lot of fun with the battle maps in this game. And yeah, as a multiplayer experience, I think this is maybe the best Mario Kart. 64 has a special place in my heart, and I think I'll always prefer it based on nostalgia. But from a gameplay perspective, this is just a lot more engaging. The actual mechanics of the game are incredibly deep. I've taken a little bit of time to mess around with time trials, for example, and some of the strategies that you can come across within just, half an hour of grinding a course. It's truly fascinating. You got the wall riding, you got the rail grinding. It feels like it's taking a lot of inspiration from the, expressive platforming that Mario Odyssey sort of, not pioneered, but made popular. And there is a massive amount of content too, which is nice. There's all these alternate costumes for characters, there's all these bonus characters, some of which I still haven't unlocked yet. I'm not sure I'm totally sold on the way you unlock characters, but I have found that if you are just kind of playing the game normally, you aren't going out of your way to try and get these characters to appear, they kind of dole themselves out to you at just the right pace. The guides that are out there for how to unlock characters, they just kind of make the game less fun. Just enjoy the game. I should also mention the free roam mode, I suppose. There is that new single player element to it, and it is pretty cool. The missions, a lot of them are sort of quick, tech challenges that help get you acquainted with the much deeper mechanics in this game. But I do find it kind of disappointing that there's so much to do and collect and find in the open world mode, and yet actually tracking your progress is really difficult. It feels like both an afterthought and a central feature. So I'm hoping in the future an update can be added that kind of gives you a checklist or something that can make completing all that there is in that mode a little more viable. So overall, a great game. I'm sure the price will continue to be a point of controversy with it, but I, for one, am certainly happy that I've got this one, and I think I'll be playing it for a long time to come. Much like Baltatro, which has been my number one game for putting the Switch 2's backwards compatibility through its paces. You don't really realize how poorly Baltatro ran on Switch 1 until you play the Switch 2 version. Well, it's not even a Switch 2 version, it's just the Switch 1 game through backwards compatibility. And it is very solid. Everything is snappy. It feels just like I'm playing on my PC. For a long time, I've been wanting to get Completionist Plus on my Switch copy of Baltatro, but the nature of that version sort of de-incentivizes certain builds and style of play. Making large decks, for example, doesn't really feel viable on Switch 1 just because the game starts to lag so much and it just becomes quite unpleasant. So far, in all the hours I put into Baltatro on Switch 2, I've not encountered any slowdown to my knowledge. It just tanks it. And I've messed around with some other games in backwards compatibility mode as well, but Baltatro's been the main one, and I think it's just great how, for the first time with a Nintendo console, not only is backwards compatibility allowing us to, play this back catalog of games that we've been building for, 7 years now, but also in a better form than when we got them. I think that's awesome. Back before Switch 2 was officially unveiled, I always said backwards compatibility was a must, and I'm just really happy they delivered, honestly, beyond my expectations. Now, outside of Mario Kart and just my continuing crippling addiction to Baltatro, the other big game that I played was Split Fiction. And this is a contender for my game of the year right now. It's made by the same developers as It Takes Two, which was one of my favorite, no, I'd say it is my favorite game I played on PS4. It's essentially just a spiritual successor to that game. So it's a co-op only action platform game with, this huge emphasis on teamwork in order to progress through the various challenges. If you haven't played a game like this before, like It Takes Two, I really can't recommend it enough if you can find someone to play it with. After you play it, I think you, like me, will ask why there aren't more games just like this, because it is so well done. And I mean, even outside the gameplay, like, I found the story in this one not always as kind of funny as It Takes Two, but I did like the themes it touched on seemed to be fairly relevant to things that are happening currently in the technology space. And some of the set pieces they come up with for this game are absolutely incredible. This part that I always bring up when I'm kind of pitching the game to friends or whatever is this part where you have to like stop a dying sun from going supernova, and it's like ejecting plasma at you and fills the whole screen. It's incredible. It's really exciting stuff, which is not something I often say about a video game in general. If you have a Switch 2, I mean, it's an easy recommend for me. But if you have, I guess if you have like a PS5 or a good PC that can run this, I would probably recommend it on, one of those other options instead. The resolution does look a little bit rough on Switch 2 at times. It's really using DLSS very heavily, and sometimes that shows. I don't think it affects the gameplay at all, and it runs very consistently. It feels good to play, but visually it can look a little rough sometimes. So if you have another option, but if Switch 2 is like your only console, or your only like modern console, then I think this is a perfectly fine way to play it. Can't recommend it enough. And then lastly, I did get Welcome Tour, as I threatened on a previous video, and it's interesting. It is kind of awkward. The very nature of it is strange. It feels sort of like playing a commercial in a lot of ways, and it's just kind of creepy. It is like corporate propaganda that you can kind of play. There's NPCs walking around, they're just like saying how much they love the Switch 2. And on the other hand, there's some fascinating information in here. I don't know. The mini games are cool. The thing that I really cared about were the tech demos and the mini games, and that stuff. It is neat. I really wanted a game that could make use of the mouse controls on day one, and this does that. So, I mean, in that way, it succeeded at what I wanted it to. The mouse is fun to mess around with, but it's not especially deep. I'm trying to think of what the best context to play this game in would be. My gut tells me if you can get like a group of like kind of nerdy friends together who have a shared interest in this stuff, and you go through and you're testing out the different hardware features together, you just got your Switch 2, maybe that's like the best way to go about it. But I think ultimately it is just like kind of a novelty that should have been a pack-in game probably. Like, there is cool stuff in here. The DLSS demo, for example, where it shows in real time upscaling a 360p Joy-Con to I think 1080p. Like, it is impressive. It's interesting. There's the mouse mini game where you're dodging the spikes. All that stuff is interesting. It's kind of fun. But yeah, I think people were pretty correct when they opined that this should have been a pack-in game. Definitely. So yeah, all in all, I'm enjoying these first several weeks with Switch 2. Now it's just waiting for Donkey Kong Bonanza. I think that's when the console's really going to start to hit its stride.